Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder. And oof. Actually, no, yeah, actually, no, you know what? Oof. Because this is not necessarily the most inspiring week, but it should at least be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. Well, I will say at least one of the things we watched was good. The rest of them, well, not so much.
Well, what do you know? One of them wasn't a Sony superhero movie.
That's true.
Actually, technically, three of them weren't Sony superhero movies, but in terms of the shared reviews, but
Oh, yeah. But yes, if you are returning, welcome back. If you're new, what we always do every week is we review stuff. We review something new or contemporary, something older or classic, and of course, and this week both of us have something solo to review. Of course, but to start us off, we're starting off at a very low point with Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven.
Hooey!
All right. So this is the last of Sony's misbegotten Spider-Man universe without a Spider-Man movies. And Daniel, I think you've seen Madam Web and Morbius and Venom. I
Mhm.
don't think either of us have seen the Venom sequels.
Correct. Yes.
If I'm comparing this to Madam Web and Morbius, it is as dumb as Madam Web and not as funny as either one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very dull movie. I'm gonna be honest. It's just yeah, I really couldn't find anything redeeming in
There
it.
were I will say I liked the okay, so encourage me if you don't know what this is or don't know, yeah, just don't know what this is. Kraven the Hunter is a Spider-Man villain who, up until a certain point, was kind of seen as a goofy sideshow because he was just, he was a jungle man, but he was a Russian communist agent jungle man, the brother of the chameleon who was brought in to try to deal with Spider-Man because he had brought or had sabotaged the chameleon schemes a few times too many. And then in the 80s, I forget the name of the comic writer. He basically had this idea for a story where the villain replaced the hero as his last outing to prove
Uh,
himself the superior. It actually started life as a Wonder Man story while he was at Marvel. And I forget, I don't even know Wonder Man lore well enough to remember who the villain would have been, but basically, it was going to be a Wonder Man story. And then then he moved over to DC and it became a Batman story, but that got rejected. Then he came back to Marvel and pitched it as a Spider-Man story with Kraven. And that story became Kraven's Last Hunt, which is unique in the annals of Spider-Man for both being a pretty serious story that actually kind of works as a one and done. It's basically like for Spider-Man, almost what the Dark Knight Returns is for Batman.
okay.
It didn't completely change how the character was viewed after that.
All right. Uh,
Um, but that basically turned Craven from a gag character to it really upped his profile in the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery, which is why uh, he was an original member of the Sinister Six, so he probably would have been featured in other media going forward. But I think that the shine from that story definitely helped.
yeah. Okay.
Um, this has nothing to do with that, but I thought I would just recommend something good that's Craven related as we talk about this. Uh, uh, but the character traits I would assign to Craven are that he's manly, composed, dangerous, deadly, largely unsympathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, in that comic book, in Craven's Last Hunt, he literally drugged Spider-Man and buried him alive
Oh.
for weeks.
Oof.
Um,
Yeesh.
this Craven has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, this Craven is they're almost trying to set him up like a hit like an anti-hero.
Right, which is Okay, so there are some things you can say about morality of movie characters. Like I'll just give example. Indiana Jones is the most pure character.
Yeah.
So you can have like somewhat non-heroic leads, but if you're a superhero story, your kind of mission in life is to present a clear moral foundation for the children and to you know to have kind of more clear right and wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all these Sony movies that star villains because that's all they had the rights to were stupid. I
Yeah.
I kind of wish we had actually gotten a Silver Sable movie like they had talked about at one point, because then you would have had a uh, actually I don't know how they would have cast her, but originally you would have had a hot platinum blonde Eastern European mercenary who was hunting escaped World War II villains. So that's a concept that I think people could go for.
Yeah, I would have gone to see that.
Yeah, but alas, we don't live in that world.
No,
So,
no.
so this is basically an origin story for a superhero. Like if they ever had tried to integrate this with the Tom Holland universe, they would have had nothing to do with each other, nothing to fight over.
Yeah, and the only Spider-Man reference that I saw in the movie was a shot of the Daily Bugle's website.
And the fact that for some reason he's afraid of spiders because his mom would always talk about the spiders when she was having a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so he has a spider phobia. That's why he'd eventually fight Spider-Man, huh?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But you might
Uh,
go, oh, DB and Daniel, you're just comic book fanboys. You're just unhappy because it doesn't match the canon. No, this is bad on its own merits too, which is a pity because like I kind of liked the opening scene and I was kind of getting into it for like the first 10 minutes or so.
yeah, yeah. The opening part was pretty good. I mean, when he's breaking into a Russian prison in Siberia to
Right.
carry out a hit, and then escape using his animal abilities, yeah,
Yeah.
and runs in the middle of a snowstorm.
Yeah, like that was neat. And then it all fell apart because it was a bunch of flashbacks and flash forwards and for very uninteresting characters. Um,
Yeah,
so the overall story here is you have Kraven, who's played by
Aaron Taylor Johnson. Yeah,
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
who he was Tangerine in Bullet Train.
Okay, man, I like Bullet Train pretty well, but I would never look at that guy and go leading man material.
Well, there were some rumors floating around that he was going to be the next James Bond.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, even if he was in the talks, this destroyed that.
yeah. And hey, Ninja, good to see you. And we're reviewing. Happy birthday. We're reviewing Kraven the Hunter because it was on Netflix, and
And we make bad choices.
yes, we do.
But yeah, so Craven is the son of Russell Crowe doing his worst Russian accent as a Russian gangster, Russian oligarch gangster man living in London,
Yeah,
probably because it was easier to film in London than to pick somewhere in Russia.
yeah,
And what occurred to me is that this is a half-assed attempt at being the story of Cain and Abel, sort of. Since you have actually no, never mind. No, Cain and Abel would have been how I would have handled it with him and the chameleon, because Craven, strong, manly, fierce.
hmm
Chameleon has to work in the shadows, agreeable, kind.
yeah,
Right? It
yeah.
should not have been Craven at loggerheads with his father. It should have been Craven, the natural heir, dealing with the jealousy of his brother.
Yeah, that would have been a far more compelling story, but that's not what we got.
No. Um, so Yeah, so Kraven has his dad, Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe can't do a Russian accent to save his life in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to unfortunately see Russell Crowe as a sign that a movie is not very good in 2025.
Yeah. He's he seems to have fallen into kind of the same trap a lot of actors fall into when they get late in their career, is they basically just take any movie they can get.
The Bruce Willis trap.
Yeah, or Robert De Niro. Yeah, just like yeah, well, you need the money that bad, huh?
Yeah, but he's a Russian gangster, big game hunter. He takes his two sons to Africa, and Craven is mauled by um, uh, Craven is mauled by a legendary lion. He is
Yes.
saved by a local, no, by another woman from London who mother might have been local or something. I don't know, but they happen to be in the area, and her mother entrusted her with a magic potion, and you'll know when to use it. She
Yeah.
uses it to save Craven's life after he's mauled by the lion, and he proceeds to get superpowers and healing factor. You know, the most interesting power set ever, right?
Yeah.
And there's also something also kind of animalish about it.
Yes. Oh, it was the grandmother was the local.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ninja. Um, yeah, and so then he goes back to London, and he has a fight with his dad because his dad's like, you didn't shoot the lion because you were scared,
Yeah.
and that makes you weak, and
Right. You know, it's basically your mercy makes you weak, but delivered badly.
yeah.
But also, I don't think of mercy when I think of Craven.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then Craven runs away, leaving his brother behind, and then uh, lives out in the wilderness.
Yeah. No, that was supposed to be Eastern Russia, right?
Yeah, like I was thinking, yeah, like kind of like near Alaska.
Yeah, could be Siberia. Eastern Russia covers a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
I guess what they don't have in any section of Eastern Russia, and I checked, creatures that look like African Cape buffalo,
yeah.
especially not a self-sustaining herd that lives for years on end.
What do you know?
But I think they needed something that big with big horns like that for the last scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically goes wild, hunts poachers, and he becomes known as this infamous heroic figure who goes out there and kills mobsters. Um,
Yes.
and then his brother, the chameleon, is kidnapped by the rhino, and it's just very stupid from there. Like it,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Ninja points out that yeah, Craven's father killed the lion that mauled him, and had the head on the wall. Yeah.
right, which he eventually turned into his jacket, I believe,
Yes.
which he
Uh,
doesn't get until the last scene of the movie.
yeah.
Okay, I know I've talked about this meme before, but just in case, there's this meme that goes around there called the surf ninja, or the surf vampire, and
Yeah.
basically we're talking about the difference in modern versus classic pacing. Um, in a classic story, you would have had a TV show called The Surfing Vampire, and the surfing vampire every week would have a surfing related adventure at night, at night presumably.
Yeah. Yeah.
In modern tales, uh, you would have had a 10 episode Netflix series uh, where the vampire learns about surfing, and in episode 10, you end like the last episode with a shot of him holding a surfboard as he looks at the sunset over the sea, and then cut to credits, and oh, we'll have surfing adventures in season 2, we promise.
Yeah.
Basically, this is all about him becoming Craven,
Yeah.
and it's boring. It's very boring.
Yeah.
So I think rather than going through the plot, which is just it is a what do you know? His brother was kidnapped, and so he goes on a bloody rampage. But the villain has minions,
Yeah.
who we must deal with in uninspiring action sequences. And there's a love interest question mark. Calypso, played by Ariana DeBose, and they what do you know? They have a big fight where they draw on elements that were previously in the movie.
Yeah.
We have the worst version of the Rhino committed to film yet, which I suppose there's only two, but still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what, what, what is that? Is that supposed to be a scream?
Yeah.
Um,
And like their version of the Rhino is like you brought this forward. It's like this weird mix of a Mormon missionary. What's his name from The Office? The Stephen Carell's character.
well, it was Dwight Schrute.
Dwight. Okay.
Yeah,
A Mormon
Rainn
missionary.
Wilson, yeah.
Dwight. And the fake Mandarin, or the real, the guy who declared he was the Mandarin in Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah,
because he had a similar sort of motivation of wanting to prove himself not weak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last scene, they actually had a pretty decent makeup of Kraven's brother as the chameleon with that faceless white mask. It's like, man, if only he had gotten that power sometime before the last scene.
Yeah.
And Ninja says, "Oh look, we have a basic theme of what it means to be a hunter." Man, you're giving this movie too much credit. I don't even credit it as having a theme.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is just like what got me was when this movie came out and it was bombing, and the CEO of Sony came out and said he couldn't understand why the movie was bombing because it's not a bad movie.
Of course, you wouldn't think it was bad. Your mother kept drinking and smoking while you were in the womb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not a bad movie. Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement either.
Ninja says they jammed the theme in every scene. Right. I refuse to credit their clumsy attempts to have a theme as actually having a theme.
If there was a theme, it was totally by accident.
No, if there was a theme, it was intentional, but it was so badly done that I deduct points.
Okay.
You have -3 themes.
Yeah.
And this isn't even like, again, this isn't Madam Web where you have hilariously bad performances or weird lip syncing. It's almost too competent for like weird audio issues. Like everything was reasonably good looking, although some of Kraven's animal powers scenes were a little goofy looking.
Yeah. And the CGI was rough in a lot of places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then of course you kept having scene after scene of Aaron Taylor Johnson and Ariana DeBose fighting over who would get the Razzie nomination. No negative chemistry.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's this movie is just like, yeah, like you said, it's not even, it wasn't even it's in a so bad it's good. It's just bad.
I spent a lot of the last half of it half watching it on my phone while thinking about how I would have handled it differently. There are so many different ways you could have had cool things with Kraven and Chameleon. Have like say you introduced that Kraven was butting heads with his father. Kraven isn't a good man. He wanted to go his own way, so he went into the he found he was a hitman for his father, but he found hunting humans boring, so he went into the jungles. And he's built his own little crime empire for himself in Eastern Africa. You could pull it into African or Russian mercenaries operating in there. But then Chameleon comes out of the woodwork, say, "Hey, brother, our father's been killed." By who? Why, it was by, and then you put in whatever Marvel villain you want to put in there.
Yeah.
And you have Kraven going on, like, there's a matter of honor, and just have that be the theme, is honor. And
Yeah.
and by the end of it, Kraven discovers in like the last act, you mean it wasn't the Scorpion who killed Dad? It was you pretending to be the Scorpion?
Yeah. Yeah. Ninja has kind of something along the same lines. Yeah, just have Chameleon orchestrate the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly like that. Because like as the movie is, Chameleon is probably the most interesting character because he does have that whole kind of Abel thing where he has talents that his dad doesn't care about, and he is
Yeah.
the softer of the two, which is why it's weird to have two soft brothers when you could
Yeah.
have a contrast instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well, what could have been?
Oh, yeah. It could have been. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, speaking of kind of forgettable schlock,
Yes.
so I have seen this movie before, but it was must have been 4 years ago at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I watched it for the first time. I watched the Guyver for the first time this weekend. It's on Prime Video, and like it's just so like so for those who don't know, it's based on an anime and a manga, and I haven't watched or read either one of them. So I had no idea what this was about. I've seen other like people review it. Um, but basically, it's this notion that that mankind was created by a race of aliens. Yeah, Ninja. It's the American version.
Made by
And
Warner Brothers.
Yeah, yeah. And the actually the production team behind it also did movies like Reanimator, um, and another horror movie called Society, which uh, if you have a weak stomach or a weak constitution, don't watch that movie. Uh, um, and oddly enough, the one of the directors of the movie, his name is Screaming Mad George. That's his professional name, not his real name. He's a makeup effects artist, and he did obviously did all the makeup effects in the movie. Which I will say that's probably the one part of this movie that I liked, along with the fight scenes. But the rest of it was just like. Um, not really for me. I had a hard time getting into it. The lore was very confusing to me because what they did was they just kind of did this like exposition crawl dump at the beginning, like a la Star Wars, where they explain like aliens created the human race, and there was another race of aliens called the Zoonoids, and they're like mutating humans. And
Wait. I forgot about that. That was like the fact that humanity was created by these aliens was in the original series. That was a big plot revelation,
oh yeah.
as memory serves.
Well, I mean, I mean, they mentioned it right away in this movie, and so then they have the Zoonoids have this company called the Kronos Corporation, and it's led by what's the guy's name? Oh, Fulton Balkus, who's played by an actor named David Gale, and he was in Reanimator. Um, he gets his head taken off by Herbert West, and then he gets brought back using the serum. So now he's just a headless headless body. I don't know. That movie's so goofy funny. Um, kind of wish I watched that one instead. But anyway, getting back to this. So there's a scientist in there, Dr. Sagawa, and he absconds with a weapon, an alien weapon called the Guyver, which is basically just this mechanical biosuit. And he's supposed to meet with Mark Hamill's character, Max Reed, who's supposedly a CIA agent. But it just doesn't act like a CIA agent. It acts more like a cop. And wearing the highest waisted pants I've ever seen on a man. Like came up to like almost up, way past his belly button. And by the way, this poster is very misleading because Mark Hamill does not become the Guyver. It's a different character. Sean Baker or Barker. He's the one who gets merged with the Guyver. I think the reason they did that with the poster was because Mark Hamill is the biggest name star in the movie. And so the Zoonoids are trying to get the Guyver, and basically just weird hijinks ensue where you have all these different Zoonoids. One of them is played by the Michael Berryman, who was in The Hills Have Eyes. He's the guy on the poster for The Hills Have Eyes. He has that very unique look. He has bald head, and he has some genetic condition. I can't remember what it's called, but it makes his head his head's kind of almost like a cone shape, and he doesn't have any fingernails, and very wrinkly skin. I can't, and like I said, he's very tall too. He's like 6'8", 6'9". And then another one of the Zoonoids is played by Jimmy J.J. Walker, who most people will remember from a TV show called Good Times, where with his famous catchphrase, "Dynamite." And I was just waiting for him to say that the entire time. The whole movie, I'm just waiting for him to do that, but he never did it. But yeah, the movie kind of the tone of the movie. It's so weird because at times it has all of the horrific makeup effects and everything that you would expect from something from Screaming Mad George, but at the same time, like, it had this goofy, like, Saturday morning cartoon tone that was really throwing me off. And I don't, of course, I don't know. Having not watched the anime, I don't know if the anime was like that or not.
I think the best way to put it, as memory serves, of the different editions of the anime that I've seen, is that it is very edgy.
Okay.
Like very teenagery in its outlook.
Okay. Well, this wasn't edgy. This felt, like I said, like more like a kid's cartoon. It's rated PG-13, so it's really not bloody. But yeah, I struggled to get into it. Let me just put it that way. And even watching it from the standpoint of like our previous movie, from a so bad it's good vantage, it was still kind of like, yeah, it wasn't grabbing my attention, So
it does have some sort of following. My understanding is that it didn't do well in theaters, but then became a mainstay on cable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like this, as a memory served, the special effects were the best part, but I've always felt that Guyver had kind of a weak story. Maybe not weak. It had like a very basic story.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Yeah, because the story in this is very basic, where it's just like, oh, just keep the Guyver away from the Zoonoids, and have a bunch of fight scenes, almost like Super Sentai or Power Rangers to us Americans.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Like, because of course, I think the movie was also trying to combine a bunch of it's trying to combine a bunch of the manga into one movie. So that's always going to make things seem a bit more rushed and fight heavy. They knew what the people would actually care about.
That's true. Yeah,
Um, did you know they actually made sequels to this thing?
I did. They made what? Two, there was a
I think there were
one,
three.
three. Okay.
I know that one of the sequels actually has a better reputation than the others. I want to say it's the third one. It involves some sort of mine, but it has been years since I was shown these movies. So it's,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah.
But you know
Well,
what?
yeah. Yeah.
Even if it isn't great, at least it will be remembered.
That's true. Yeah.
Unlike what I'm afraid will happen to my solo review. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie featuring Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, which I would normally say go see it in theaters, but it's already been yanked because they didn't advertise it and it did awful.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
So I decided to go see this one because I'm a big fan of 2D animation, and I wanted to support what looked like at least a decent movie that uh, featured 2D animation. Um, and I kind of had a feeling this wasn't going to do great because I just didn't hear any buzz about it. Uh, One thing that was kind of neat is that as I was watching the opening credits, I recognized the name Andrew Dickman, who used to make cartoons on YouTube and Newgrounds.
Hmm.
And I know he had, when I looked him up on IMDb, he had been doing background work for Dinosaur Train, I think, which is a kids show.
Okay.
So, based on what I recall from him, like just his development diaries and videos and everything, getting to make a Looney Tunes cartoon would have been a lifelong dream of his. So I'm glad he got to do it, but it's kind of a shame that it didn't go well, and from a people caring perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. Yeah, and I'm with you there. Like I'm a big 2D fan, 2D animation fan too, and I had I known about this movie, like I probably might have tried to go see it, but yeah, it's yeah, that's disappointing. This movie didn't do better.
Yeah, but so let's take aside the bad box office response. Uh, So The Day the Earth Blew Up is unique in a few ways. It is the first Looney Tunes movie that was released theatrically that did not have a bunch of live action elements, but also wasn't made up of past cartoons in some sort of montage.
Okay.
In this world, a young Daffy and Porky are they're adopted by this guy named Farmer Jim, I want to say, and they're raised as brothers basically. And they have an extended opening sequence where you quickly realize that Porky is the more responsible one, but still not great, while Daffy is he's very much in the Bob Clampett mode where he's insane.
Okay.
If he can go loony, he will go loony. The movie really opens with an asteroid crashing into the Earth as a very manly-looking scientist tracks it down. And I had heard people say that they thought the art style looked more like a Ren and Stimpy cartoon. Uh, the Looney Tunes characters look on point, but the humans in the crowds did kind of look more like something from a Ren and Stimpy show.
Hmm.
Although as I was thinking about it, some of the way that Chuck Jones would draw humans kind of looks like this too. So it's just sort of it's like it's interesting because they're like kind of realistic but also caricatured. So it's it fits, it's neat, but it's just
Yeah.
it kind of took me aback a little bit at first.
Hmm.
Now the girl pig over there is named Petunia, who seriously kept reminding me of Amy the Hedgehog. Very similar voice, similar hairstyle.
Uh,
Her deal is that she works at the Goody Gum Factory as a flavor scientist, and she is a weirdo. It is kind of funny because she is clearly much smarter than Daffy or Porky, but she's also like she's actually kind of like the female detective in the Wallace and Gromit movie we reviewed, where she has a lot of comedic foibles. So like, even though technically like you could see somebody with a checklist saying, well, we got to have a character like this, the writers still had fun with it.
yeah, okay.
Like she'll do weird things like she's trying to synthesize the perfect flavor.
Yeah.
It's like she'll do weird things like she'll chew on a sponge. Like, well, is this the missing flavor to add to the mix? But aliens have invaded. Daffy and Porky have to get a job because the asteroid damaged their house.
Oh.
And they have a week to fix it, or else the HOA will kick them out.
Mm.
And it's the house that Farmer Jim left them before he mysteriously died. By the way, Farmer Jim was weird because, or weird in an intentional way, because he very rarely moved. He was always like a still image in a more painterly style that was like jumping around and everything, or like almost South Park walking, where it's like this like up and down motion to indicate movement without actually animating anything.
Oh.
But so while working at the gum, so they get a job at the gum factory to pay for the repairs, and in the course of things, they find out that the aliens are going to use the gum to take over the world. Now, I'm going to get vague at this point because when this drops in some sort of streaming service, which we know that's Ketchup Entertainment bought it for a reason. They bought it off of Warner Brothers to put out into theaters. You hope that they had a plan B.
Yeah.
Might get on Amazon or Paramount or something.
Yeah, Netflix.
Yeah, something like that.
Mm.
So when it comes out again, I think people who like Warner Brothers stuff should give it a shot. On the plus, I would say that most of the best laughs are in the first half. Second half, it kind of gets more into the plot, but also it kind of does the 2/3 acts thing.
Oh,
which always kind of messes with the pacing.
Like a James Cameron movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like right around when it feels like the movie is wrapping up, like, wait, what? We have this new complication? Oh yeah, I guess we never did explain this.
Wow.
Like it's like everything does like make sense, and things are set up and paid off, and it's a plot that's designed for kids to keep track of. So it's like I could basically predict every beat 20 minutes before it actually happened. Because it's a classic story. You have the two brothers who have some sort of friction because they have different personalities, but they're still, tied at the hip. And they have a second act breakup, and they come back together and to save the day. And they have a romance plot between Porky and Petunia.
Of course.
It's also a low-key horror movie. There's a lot of elements that are borrowed from The Thing, or they have a scene where an alien monster is doing the Jurassic Park Velociraptor kitchen scene with them.
Oh.
I can tell that people who are making this were having a great time because the animation quality in most of the scenes kind of reminded me of the Monkey Wrench animated shorts, where characters are very rarely totally static.
Oh yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
There's also a lot of little references to past Warner Brothers things. There's a coffee place called Beans Coffee, which that is they had a picture of a little cartoon cat creature. That's a reference to the first Porky Pig cartoon, where they basically had like a kids sing-along thing, and they basically just threw out a bunch of characters to see who was popular, and they thought it was going to be this cat named Beans, who was technically the main character.
Oh,
But everyone hated Beans, but they liked Porky because he was funny.
yeah.
Um, there was a one of the restaurants was named after Bob Clampett, whose style is all over this movie, and Tex Avery, who the other Warner Brothers great, who was clearly the inspiration. This is much less Chuck Jones Looney Tunes, a much more insane Looney Tunes.
Okay. Okay.
But so again, I have my criticisms of it, but I don't want to spoil it either. I'll say that I'll give this one a solid B- or C plus, and it's still just unique and unique enough to watch. There are just some things that they did that annoyed me personally because I have seen them in too many animated films lately.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I also think this one is totally suitable for the kids, and it's like a kid accessible horror, as Chris Gore was saying.
Oh, okay.
One thing I did keep finding out, I sometimes have a trouble when I'm watching kids' movies. I feel like I have my mother in the seat next to me because I know how she would respond to every scene. Yeah. Like, oh, that's too violent. That's gross. Why does that woman have big boobs that are bouncing around comedically?
Oh dear.
Right, yeah, right. Basically, like if I'm watching an anime, I never have that thought. But as soon as it's like a kid's cartoon from the West, it's like, that inner censor comes out.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But yeah, again, overall, recommend. I would say that having some familiarity with the Warner Brothers canon would be helpful, but I think this does a good enough job of explaining itself that you could understand it if you didn't grow up watching those cartoons.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
But like this comes out, made $5 million worldwide its opening weekend. But things like Mufasa were just able to, if not get to profitability, at least um, make money by being at theaters week after week after week. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, the
Yeah.
mad, mad, mad world. So I had never seen this one before, but I knew it by reputation. And of course, this is one of those, as you watch it, it's like, oh, well, that Simpsons episode just got unlocked.
Yes. Yes, this movie was a mainstay in my household. My especially my father. This is one of his favorites. He actually saw uh, the extended version of this movie in the theater, which was 3.5 hours long. The version we watched was just under three. Um, and oh, Ninja.
Ninja, what is it? How does it feel like to be so wrong? Does it hurt? Because I even had the advantage of having seen Rat Race first on several occasions,
Yeah.
and I have to give it to this one.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, like so, my father saw the 3.5 hour version of this in Cinerama, which was where the screen actually like curved around,
Hmm.
and there were only three of them. It was New York, L.A., and Houston, and my dad saw the one in Houston. And which is pretty amazing that a 9-10-year-old could sit through a 3.5 hour movie. Which
Yeah, that was the thing I always found when watching this was that it was like I kept being startled at how much movie there was and how much there was left. Like because it goes along at a really brisk pace, which a lot of comedies can bog down past 90 minutes.
yeah, they can. Yeah. Although in the case with this movie, this was almost like the Avengers of comedy, like because
Yeah.
it has like just about every great comedian and comedic actor of the era that is in this, and if they're
And the
not
previous era.
in the previous era, yeah, and if they're not in this one of the major roles, they had you got somebody that's a cameo. For instance, the main character, one of the main characters of the movie is played as a cop played by Spencer Tracy. And there's this scene at the beginning when he throws his hat out the window, or he accidentally throws it out the window, and Jerry Lewis comes along and runs it over.
Oh, I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, that was Jerry Lewis. Yeah, you're like, get his number.
Yeah, so if you are a fan of old comedies like this, part of the fun is just seeing who shows up. Like, I kept wondering if Don Knotts was going to show up.
Yes, and he does.
He does. We also got some all-time greats in there, like Buster Keaton in a bit role, the Three Stooges in a bit role, although it's a bit role where they make sure that you saw them.
Yes, yeah. So the movie, get to the plot of the movie, which is a simple plot. I mean, it's not a very intricate. You've got these a group of motorists. They're driving along the highway, and on this curved road, and then this one car who's just driving really mad, and then driving erratically, and then he hits a curve, and in the words of Milton Berle's character, he just went sailing right out there. And the car was driven by Jimmy Durante, who we saw in what was that movie? The Man Who Came to Dinner.
Oh, that's right. He was. I forgot he was in that. And I was kind of thinking that one guy in Navajo Joe kind of looked like him, and I was very hopeful until I realized no, that would have been stupid.
Yeah. But then so the motorists, so five of the guys get out, and it's Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Buddy Hackett, Mickey Rooney, and Jonathan Winters. And they're there to hear Jimmy Durante's last words. And
Joe, 300,000 under the big W.
Yeah, it's Santa Rosita. And and from there the movie kicks off. It just goes from there where this group of people, they're trying to figure out, like, okay, at first, they're driving along because they each one of them thinks, okay, well, I got to get there before the other ones do. But then they stop and they're like, okay, well, maybe we just split the money.
And they get into a big, long argument about, like, well, there's only one person in your car, so like each car gets a fifth. And then Ethel Merman, who is one of the mother-in-law of Milton Berle, like very overbearing mother-in-law, is like, no, it should be per person, not per car.
Yeah. Yeah, and as a lot of people have pointed out, like, it's kind of done that they do that like intentionally, that they can never really split the money up really evenly very well. And so then they end up they just say, all right, well, it's everyone for themselves. And so they all go off and do their various try their various ways of getting to Santa Rosita, and in very comical and screwball ways.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the police, who have been trying to find this money that was stolen from a tuna plant, which $300,000 on site at a tuna factory? What?
Man.
But they've been trying to track down this robbery for many years now. And
like 10 or 15 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have who was the police chief, or the police not the chief, the detective?
Spencer Tracy.
Yeah, Spencer Tracy's character is this long-suffering, honest cop who has been on this case for years and is just dealing with all sorts of nonsense stress at home. And his pension hasn't been raised since 1934. And
yeah, he's talking to his wife on the phone. She's like, what? Talking about their daughter. Like, well, when you're 6'5", you're gonna have special problems.
I think I'm finally in on that tuna case. The what? The tuna case. Never heard of it. You know, the one I've been mentioning to you every day for the last 15 years. So you just know that he gets no respect. But and it's again it's amazing how fast 3 hours can fly by when you have great comedians running into a bunch of very distinctive problems.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was Sid Caesar and his wife, who, by the way, Sid Caesar really reminds me of who was it that played the critic?
John Lovitz.
He really kept reminding me of John Lovitz. Like if they did a one-for-one remake, John Lovitz is who I would have had be that character. The
Yeah.
similar sort of self-important and snide, but actually not all that clever.
Yeah.
Because this one's actually kind of hard to review, like a lot of comedies are, because we don't want to spoil the best bits. Because the essence of comedy is surprise.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, and my two favorite bits were probably like Jonathan Winters at the service station with the two guys.
Jonathan Winter's character kind of surprised me because he seemed like such a nice, steady young man at first, and
Yeah.
but you realize very quickly that he has a huge rage problem.
Yeah.
He's pushed too far.
Yeah, he flies off the handle pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then the other one was with Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett. When they're
Yeah.
when they're on the plane.
Yeah, the plane that was being flown by the rich guy from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. Like, well, make me an old fashioned.
Are you sure you should drink and fly?
Man.
Yeah, it's very clever writing. The disparate plots come and go together very well. One thing I will say is that in Rat Race, Rat Race is basically either a late 90s or early 2000s attempt to redo it with a different stable of comedians. They just didn't have the same number of comedians. It,
Yeah.
or they just didn't have the same breadth and craziness. It was very close. And actually, now that I think about it, John Lovitz was in that one.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
No wonder it seemed natural to me that to see him in a mad world type movie.
Yeah.
I will say that in that one, they did have the advantage of modern technology, making it more plausible that they could basically track the movements of everyone. Like as the police were tracking them and drawing their progress on the map, you did kind of have to yada a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but if you think about it, though, uh, I don't think this movie would work if it was set in modern day because of cell phones and the internet.
Yeah, cell phones would ruin a lot of plots because if you got
Yeah.
stuck, I'll just hire an Uber.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then you'd have to like write something else like, they're out in the middle of the desert and they don't have a cell phone signal, or one of them loses their phone, or
Right. I think in Rat Race they did intentionally remove resources from them.
Okay. Yeah.
As memory serves, or there was some sort of extra part of the challenge, and they did know it was a challenge of some sort.
Right. Yeah. That one was. Yeah. It was an actual competition. It was a contest, and then whereas this movie, it was a happenstance thing that they come across a criminal telling them about a whole bunch of money buried under a big W.
Right. It just spins out of control from there, so it's a bit more
Yeah.
dynamic that way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then other characters get dragged into it, like the Terry Thomas, who's the British guy who picks up Milton Berle and his wife, and then Ethel Merman.
Yeah, and the man delivers what might be the first red pill anti-woman rant I've heard, at least of that sort. This is quite the matriarchy you've made here in America.
Yeah.
And you're also obsessed with bosoms.
Yeah. If women stopped wearing brassieres, your economy would collapse. Oh, jeez.
Let's see. Yeah, like I said, if you this is available to stream on it's available on, I believe it's on Amazon, was it?
Amazon, yeah.
Yeah, I ended up renting it since I don't have an Amazon account. I think it's also available on Pluto TV. But after my experience with Navajo Joe, I decided I would rather just pay the $4 and not deal with their interface or ads.
Yeah. Well, especially a movie like this. Yeah, watching it with ads would get very tiresome after a while.
And it well, so okay, so to continue my my rant from last week about Pluto TV, also most of these services, when you have the ad supported, they give you an idea of how many ads are left and how long your ad break is going to be.
Yeah.
So when I was watching Navajo Joe last week, it kept just like popping up a single 30-second commercial for Disney World.
No, jeez.
And like, okay, well, I guess this is an ad break. And then it would just jump right back to it. So it wasn't even enough time to get up or anything.
Oh man.
But so yeah, and with this type of thing where the timing and flow is so important, ads would destroy it.
Oh yeah. 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 This movie's a classic for a reason. Yeah.
Yep. And if you're a Simpsons aficionado, the episode that distinctly refers to this is the cat burglar episode.
Yes. I'm trying to remember which season it was. Like 6.
Yeah, 6, somewhere in there.
Yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah. But yeah. I highly recommend this movie.
Yep. It is funny how we can spend 20 minutes complaining about Kraven the Hunter, but an actual good movie gets 10. So
Yeah.
it is a mad, 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 mad world.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, one other last thing I'll say. If
Right.
you're watching this and the screen is completely blank for the first 2 minutes while they sing the theme song, your screen is not broken.
Right.
I actually checked my stream twice to make sure that nothing was wrong with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The opening credits is like 6.5, 7 minutes long.
Well, well, and even with before the animation starts at the opening,
Right. You got 2 minutes.
they
Yeah.
sing the theme song on a blank screen, which I wonder if that was supposed to be like reminiscent of vaudeville or something, like a theater production.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Because like when you think about it, this was like you said this was like the Avengers of comedy. Like it's even bigger. There is no modern equivalent because this isn't just everybody who was in movies at the time. It was people who had careers going back to the vaudeville stage.
Yeah.
It's like everybody just brought different talents and acts to it. So,
Yeah. 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 I can't see Hollywood ever making another movie like this ever again.
right. I mean, who would you have in it, honestly?
Yeah.
Actually, I'd say part of the issue is that because of the sheer glut of media and streaming and things like that,
Mm.
uh, there would be it would actually be very hard to have seen everything and recognize everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of similar to the problem of part of why YouTube stopped doing the YouTube rewinds outside of every single one getting roasted for being lame. Is that YouTube just grew too big for there to be anything meaningful to say, which is part of why it got roasted. Because of course, your little corner of YouTube you're in, like, you don't know who half of these people are.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's worth a watch.
Yeah.
Don't do it with ads because it will ruin the experience most likely, or at least ruin the timing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
at least we ended on a bang.
Indeed. Yes. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always.
Indeed.
Yeah. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ring the bell. Buy some comic books if you haven't already. Guardian Angel Part 2. Link is in the description down below. We've got a little over 3 weeks left on the campaign. We're approaching 50% funding. So, get on that if you haven't already. And
Indeed.
we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
One little thing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We are doing an adjustment to the schedule. Next week we'll be streaming on Wednesdays, and we'll be trying that out for the near future.
Yes, yeah. So, yes, thank you for reminding me about that. Yeah, so we'll see you on Wednesday. Night, everybody.
Yep, later.